Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Rochelle.
How are you?
Is that how you pronounce it?
Yes, exactly. Yes.
Okay,
How are
thanks.
you?
I'm good. Wrapping up a yet another busy week in the
Absolutely.
summer with
Absolutely.
the internship going on.
Yep, absolutely.
So, yeah. How are you? How are you?
The same, the week is busy. I've got a lot of things on my plate I'm trying to do. So, trying to do all those things, but I am okay. So may I ask you to tell us your name and share with us anything you feel comfortable so that we can get to know you?
Sure. Thank you so much for asking. My name is Rajat Pungaliya. Uh, so I'm from India, born and brought up, and did my undergrad there. Uh, in India, the pronunciation is Rajat with focus on the R, saying R, and going lower. But it's difficult for many people outside India to roll their tongue R and pronounce that, and it's often mispronounced as Rajat or something in a funny way. I've stopped minding that, but when someone particularly does that, it feels really good now.
Say, say,
Uh,
say your name again. Say it slowly and clearly.
Rajat.
Rajat. Was I close?
Uh, yeah, it was close. It was close. So the A's go down to use. So Rajat.
Rajat. Rajat.
Anyway,
Excellent. So,
thanks.
so where in India? Where is home in India?
Yes. Home is Pune. It's a couple hours inland from the west coast from Mumbai.
Okay.
Uh, I my high schooling. I've been in Pune since high school for until my high school. For college, I went to South India, where the culture is vastly different. They speak a different language. The basic food diets are completely different. The people are different. And it was a big cultural change then to move from one ethnic background to another ethnic background and facing. So, being in a university was shielded from all these externalities outside, but we did step outside quite a lot, and interacting with the local people there definitely made me feel a bit alienated because I did not speak the language. Like the script is completely different and the dialect is completely different. So they were hesitant to speak English or the national language Hindi, and I did not know how to speak their language, Tamil. So that was one of my first interface to changing cultures and going into a diverse environment. I was fascinated by the culture, but they probably were not because I was there for the first time. They have been experiencing influx from of students from different parts of the country, and they might or might not have the best experiences with them. So it was definitely not the most comfortable situations to interact with the local people. But that was my first experience with a diverse environment. And
Did,
even the school administration was the similar way.
did you learn to speak the language over time as you went? Did you adapt to the culture, or did you find it, you know, uh, onerous to do so?
Um, Initially, for first few months, I did try to learn. I thought I would like buy a book and start learning, but it was being a completely different script. It was really hard to start something from scratch, and I gave up pretty soon. But I did manage to catch a few words to get by, like a yes, no, hello, please, okay, just so that I could travel around in public transport and like environments. But I definitely developed a strong liking for the food. I appreciated the food over there. Some people did not, but personally, I love the food. And even here, like we didn't make a lot of food of that kind of food at home, but in the US, I do a lot of cooking of that cuisine. Many things stayed. Yeah.
So how were you able to complete your degree in that environment if you didn't adapt to the language? Was it taught in English, or were there translators? How did that work?
Oh, yeah, yes. Thanks for asking. I missed that part. So inside the university was completely English. That my high schooling, my all school education was English. Primary, middle, high school, university was English. So we were shielded from all these local externalities.
You know.
So
So
so yeah.
let me ask you a question. So I have quite a few friends from India, all across India, and one of the things I hear a lot about is the caste system. Can you talk about that? And one, why does it exist? And two, how does it impact people? And is it something that will ever change?
Those are really big and tough questions, and you hit the spot on these. Um, I, I don't want to mix facts with my opinion, and I think there is a lot of mix over here what I'm about to answer, and I hope it is not taken in any negative sense. And these are my personal understanding, and it could be pretty much wrong. So bear
Okay.
with me, please. I for what is a caste? Caste is so it was this is I think it comes from mythology or like traditional culture from thousands of years back. Uh, like being a very ancient country and like having so much culture, it evolved in many different ways. And yeah, so it was segregation in a way where the worker class, the educated class, the ruling class, because they're like kingdoms and they're rulers in like in the history in Indian history. So I think that that was the reason why they were separated, like farmers or blacksmiths or cobblers or like different kinds of service classes, blue collar, white collar jobs. Um, so obviously the kings were, I think, the highest class. Their families were highest. The accountants or the managers in different segments were below them. The warrior class was a separate class, and then all other worker class was separate. And I think as the ruling classes, the rulers or the ancient dynasties started to fade away with time or with new change, with evolvements, uh, their structure probably changed. Like it faded away, but the caste system remained, and it was a feeling of power for the people on top and like to oppress and enjoy more benefits from the people on the bottom. So those people enjoyed that and they kept it and they made sure to keep it that way. And to this day, like the caste system still stays in many parts of the country. And why I think it won't go away anytime soon is because the government has introduced a reservation system. Now reservation is assigning a quota or a reserved seat for these backward classes or different castes. Now, and that makes up to almost 50% of the entire quota. So the general public is a big chunk, the reserved caste is a smaller chunk, but they still get 50% of the reservation in any government job. And India is not a capitalist country. It is, I don't know where it stands, but there is a big, good amount of social or communal component. Most of the entities are state-owned. People aspire to go to government jobs because it provides them security and lots of benefits amongst different political practices. But I lost my thought. But so people like I personally know people, and it's a big thing where people will fake documents just to be included in the lower class so that they can get the benefits of being in the reserve system and move up in hierarchy in the working organization. So people still and people want more reservation for better representation. Now I'm not making any judgments whether reservations should or should not be there. It is definitely providing equity to those who need it, but some people misuse it. That's one big component. And people that like because there is so much diversity in India, there is no one common voice. People hesitate to unite on a common front. So even though they share their issues locally, And these are common patterns all across the country. You don't see people uniting against one front to raise a voice. And activism of this sort is not very prominent. They are definitely suppressed. The local politicians don't, like the elected representatives who should speak up for them, do not. It's a vote bank for them, honestly, I feel. So yeah, did I answer any question over there?
You
Or did I
absolutely
just
did. Thank
lose
you very much.
in
That's
any?
very, very helpful. Can you move within caste systems? So if you're a warrior class, can you become a manager or whatever? Can you move? Can you voluntarily move within the caste system? So can you go from this system to the next, or is there some process, or is that not even possible?
I don't know, honestly. I have no idea. Um, these caste systems were more specific and distinct in the ancient days. I don't know how they are called out now, but so the surname, the last name is a very important part of a person's identity in India, and to some extent, it definitely uh, recognizes you or your caste or your religion, and caste and religion also go very interchangeably. So again, I'm not very sure. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
this is very, very helpful. So how
Yeah.
familiar are you with race in America?
Yes. How do I answer that? I am familiar to some extent that I know it's a very systemic issue. I've come to learn about the history of it in the past 1 year that I've been living here, and
You're familiar with
so
slavery and
yes, I am. Yes, and I have started reading more about them. And we were taught, I don't remember how much, but this was covered in our history books to some extent, for sure. The history of America.
in high school.
Yes, yes, in middle school, or maybe before middle school in India. And uh, honestly, I'd forgotten about the history, or if those practices still remain, and how recent they were,
Yeah.
until I went to Atlanta. So in December, we had a full month off for vacation. Many friends went back home to India. I said, like, no, I want to travel in the United States. So I took a trip to Atlanta, Nashville, uh, Cincinnati, Florida, and New York, through so many different cultures, climate zones, and history. And when I went to Atlanta, I got the opportunity to visit the National Center for Civil Rights. And reading the timeline when this happened, it was so recent. I never thought it was so recent, and these problems have not gone away,
Right.
in my opinion. And I visited the birthplace of Martin Luther King, the visitor center, and I was really fascinated by the history, and I felt moved. I was doing a solo travel, and unfortunately, I couldn't express it to anyone, how I felt, and share and talk about it back in December, until uh, recently, when these problems started erupting and coming out more prominently.
So slavery, Jim Crow, Reconstruction, civil rights, and today. So those four pieces are the cornerstone of race in America, right? So I don't know how much you studied about this. So if you think about this, when the first white Americans arrived on this in America, there were indigenous people here. Indians were here. Native Americans were here, and they had survived off the land for thousands of years. They were in sync with the land and all of that. And when they were able to almost obliterate the Indians, slavery became a thing, right? And so first they tried to, more indentured servitude, right? So they tried to have white people be, the worker bees, if you will, but they would run away or escape or whatever. And so someone hit on the bright idea, well, let's go to Africa and get these, quote, uneducated people and bring them here to work. And so you had 400 years of unpaid wages that made America the capitalist foundation of America what it is today. And then Civil War and certainly the 13th, the 14th, the 15th Amendment, brought in constitutional rule to, eliminate some of these systems. But a lot of people were resistant to that. When you think about that just practically, so here we are, and we have this labor who makes money for us, who does everything we want to do to them, and we can treat them any kind of way. Jim Crow and other systems, even though we were no longer enslaved, we were, still captives, if you will, to a society that did not see us economically as people, chattel. We were 3/5 of a person. The N word was battered around like it was an everyday word. Grown men were called boy, and things like that. And so we get past Jim Crow to some degree, and we have Reconstruction, and then we have the Civil Rights Movement, right? So we have all of that. And so here we are in 2020, and there's a man, Mr. George Floyd, who was killed by a law enforcement officer who held his knee on his neck for 8 minutes and 46 seconds. And the point of me telling you this is for you to see if you can compare that to the caste system, right? So here you have a group of people who have been marginalized the entire time they've been here, not by their last name or their religion, but by the color of their skin. And so a lot of times I love reading about the caste system. I really brought it a lot now, and it's one of the most fascinating things in the world to me, because I can see the similarities to slavery, right? The difference is that unlike some caste systems that have advanced, Black and brown Americans have still struggled to find their place and to be accepted and to be included in the spectrum of life in America, right? And so, Black people are majority, I wouldn't say a majority, but a large portion of them are poorly educated, suffer from every kind of discrimination or harassment you can experience. And yet and still there's power and strife in moving forward as Black and brown people. So when I look at the caste system, and I will tell you, the caste system and slavery, to me kind of run neck and neck, because it's the same thing. So like, you penalize people for something that they can do nothing about. So if you were born into a poor family, or if you had the wrong last name, or if you didn't practice the right religion, you're penalized in the caste system. Well, in slavery, it's the same thing, except for it's by the color of your skin, rural South, although all of America had periods of severe racism, there were all these things that kind of penalized people for things that were beyond their control, right? So if you're born into a caste system and the last name is John, and that's a bad name, you didn't choose that name. That's just the name of the family you were born in, and you're penalized for having that name. Well, being Black, you're penalized for the color of your skin, right? And there are some assumptions, and I don't know if this is completely true in the caste system, but there's an assumption that we are not intellectually as smart as other groups. So for example, Asians, including Indians and Japanese and Chinese people, these are considered the cream of the crop in the math and science sphere, because these people are, that's a stereotype that has been promoted for years and years and years. Whereas Black people is the exact opposite. No matter what we achieve, even, going to a predominantly white school, like where you go to school, Black and brown people struggle to believe that their colleagues believe they belong there, right? So they're there because of a quota, or they're there because of some, allotment that the school made. I have to have a certain number of Black or brown students, right? And if you walk around, where you go to school and stuff like that, how many professors are white men, white women, Black women, Black men, Black women, Indian, Native American, whatever they are, the numbers are extremely small. And so the reason why I asked you about the caste system is because I wanted to make that parallel between that and slavery. And as you said, you don't know when it'll ever go away. We are in that same space. We don't know when we will reach parity or equality, right? We don't know when we will be accepted as just human beings, regardless of what our last names are, regardless of the color of our skin, regardless of the religion we practice, but just human beings. And I often tell people this, if you consider the universe, if you go outside your door, there are so many different kinds of trees outside your door, you probably can't even name them. If you look in the ground, there's so many bugs that you can't name them. Fish. The universe is diverse, probably more diverse than anything in the world. And I'm
Hmm.
in the universe as a whole, things survive because they survive, right? So, you have snakes and beetles and all these things that somehow coexist in a world together. So I'm sure things eat snakes, and I'm sure snakes eat things, but they don't eat everything that they can find. They eat for survival. Whereas we as human beings are more destructive. We want to destroy each other and destroy ways of life. And it's not clear why, because people who align themselves with religion and align themselves with the universe is so different from the practices and the beliefs that we have as human beings, even within the caste system. I mean, I have never been to India, but I'm sure you have trees and different kinds of animals and all this. You don't
Yeah.
have this one kind. Or you don't have, like, the tree that grows shortest. You don't condemn that tree because it only grows 2 feet, or the tree that grows 100 feet. They're all there for a purpose. And when you think about diversity in those spaces, why is the universe so much wiser than we are as men, as human beings? Why is it that the universe recognizes the need for diversity and we as human beings do not? That's a question.
Yeah. Oh, wow. I mean, thanks so much for sharing the history and drawing a parallel. I think I definitely agree. I was trying to have this conversation with my roommate, who is also from India. We went to college together. We were agreeing how caste system is a similar problem, if not the same. The variables and the metrics are different. The level of comparison is different, but it is very similar. Like people are not at fault for choosing where they are born. Like not having they don't choose where they are born. They don't choose their color of the skin. They don't choose their last name or the region or the religion in which they are born. Why should they be penalized for it?
Right.
Um, and I don't know to what extent giving equity or reservation to them versus trying to actively root out these problems make a difference. And I don't know what solutions exist to root these problems out in in both these situations. Um, I would still like to say that like color of the skin, it is judged in even in India, like in different ways maybe. Especially it's a very big thing for marriage. uh, like arranged marriage is a very big culture in India, and when you are looking for a marriage for your spouse, when your families are looking, they will make sure that they are looking at a very particular religion, a very particular caste, hell, even a very particular subcaste. They need education qualifications and personality and the things they do for a living. That's different, but looking at all these and then looking at the time you were born, the stars that were aligned, and whether your stars match their stars or not, and looking at the color, like even if everything stands out, no, they don't look fair enough, they don't look good enough, we are not going to move ahead no matter how good a person they are. Then there was also a big problem, and it is still there in something in many places that we just don't see it, but of dowry. And dowry is basically the women or the women's parents having to pay huge amounts of money, land, house, cars to the groom's family, to the men's family. Pardon, I don't mean to make a binary case here, but just from one generally from the female side to the male side. So that's a very big issue of having to pay money, and like they take out loans, they drown in mortgage and loans, and it's not a good thing. And there's a underlying expectation always for like all these things in a marriage, and marriage is a very big part of anyone's life. So it's, and at some point or the other you do it, like people like in India at least, so it's inevitable.
Right.
But what are people doing to solve it? Like it's inevitable, be it in your 20s and or your 30s or your 40s, whenever it is inevitable, it is coming. And who is doing that for
Yeah.
what?
Yeah.
um
And I think that in another one of these comparisons is wealth, right? So
oh,
if I'm going to marry someone in India and I am not wealthy, or I don't come from the right system, or I don't have the right things, so to force me to take out loans and to forfeit my very livelihood so I can marry to this person,
exactly,
right?
yes.
And that's the same way in America, right? So we don't get the best jobs, we aren't paid equity, we aren't recognized as contributors to our overall society. In fact, we're seen as angry and violent and less. And I will share one more thing with you. I don't know how much you know about Latino and Hispanic heritage, but they have a color problem too, and we call that colorism, right? So there's a book that was written about 10, 15 years ago called What Color is Your Abuelo? What color is your grandmother, right? And so if your grandmother is, of a darker skin, it implies that you are a lesser person, right? And so, if you look at you and I, right? So we are, close in skin color. If you were walking down the street, somewhere downtown Durham, more people or not are going to assume first that you're either Black or Hispanic. It isn't until you start talking that someone's going to realize that you're not, right? And so the fact that we still attach these constructs and these stereotypes to people based on skin color, right? So how thick are your lips? Do you have high cheekbones? How wide is your nose? All of these things do us more harm than they do good. Because I go back to my universe example. I mean, like, I love magnolia trees. Magnolia trees are probably the most beautiful trees I've ever seen in my life.
Hmm.
But I have crepe myrtle, I have pine trees, I have oak trees, I have cedar trees. I love all of them. I'm a tree hugger by nature. But I mean, my magnolia is my favorite. But I don't treat my magnolia any different than I treat my oak tree. It's a tree and it's out there, is helping me breathe, it's producing oxygen. So it's a
Right.
great thing, right? So as when I think about diversity, I don't use diversity of persons as the sole foundation, right? So diversity of thought, diversity of ideas, diversity of action, and diversity of persons become that four wedge that helps us be better. And if we continue to find definitions of what's wrong with someone because of something that is beyond their control, you know um you're a very handsome young man. I couldn't see how a single person in the world would not be thrilled just to be in your presence, right? Just to spend time with you, women, men, whatever it is, to be friends with you. But then there are going to be some people, they're going to see you based on your skin color,
Yep.
not your education, not your qualifications, not your experience, not all the things that you bring to the table, but simply because of your skin color. And if we don't find somehow in the entire world to eradicate these stereotypes, we are doomed to fail, because
Yep.
we need each other. Human beings are human beings, like if you look at the dolphins or the sharks, and there are different variations of those kinds of animals, but they have a common foundation, right? They have common things, right? So sharks eat seals and whatever it is, and dolphins do it. Why is it so necessary for us to have so much diversion and separation among ourselves because of things that are just
Right.
unreasonable?
Right. Yeah, 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 definitely. I mean, so let me share a personal story as well. So I come from a privileged background, and like I'm privileged to be here. It takes so much money. India is a developing country. The currency is not as strong as the US, but I'm here for a reason, and that is privilege. I was privileged to be exposed to these opportunities of like I was privileged to have money to for my parents have money for me to send here. But what am I doing about it? Like, do I want to do anything about it? And like back at home, there is a culture like it's like India is it's so populated, labor is cheap. Uh, my parents have a business, a furniture shop, and they have so many helpers. Definitely, I'd call them helpers. They're called differently by different people, and we have helpers at home as well. Again, I don't like the term servant. People call servant, and that's derogatory. I don't like that, so I call them helpers. And they have they are not as privileged. They don't come with good education. They don't come with high self-esteem. High. I know uh, with a stronger sense of purpose. So they have this inherent sense of subordinity. And so a helper who cleans the house, they are probably 30 or 40 years older to me. And when they treat me with more respect than I treat my parents. I'm like, you don't need to do that. Like, I will tell them, no, just call me by my first name. Don't put a master or a sir translated from the local language. Like, that's absolutely not needed. You are doing work you need to do, and you don't need to show me extra respect. Like, you are showing enough respect. I respect you. You respect me. So people I don't know what I'm trying to say, but there is this inherent sense of subordinity, and that needs to go away. And how do we make that go away? We engage more, engaging with them, engaging and showing, giving the respect, giving them equal place in society, giving them equal place at your dining table. Like invite them to sit with you at your dining table. That does not happen. Servants sit at on the floor in the kitchen. They don't sit outside while having food. That's one biggest flaw. It happens in my home. I'm ashamed to say it. I wish I could change it. I don't live there right now, but I would definitely want to change that. And I love to go to their homes and have a simple meal at their home, sit with them and have spend time with them to show them equal respect, to show them how much I value them, and show them they are no less than me. I've got different opportunity like privileges, and I want to share that with them. I want to do something like even any kind of action to show them that they are no less and get that sense of insubordinity out. So
Yep,
that's one huge thing.
yep.
It's a very bad thing. Yeah.
And I will tell you that the opposite of that goes back to Jim Crow and slavery, right? So you had colored only and whites only, right? And
It was there during British India.
yeah,
Like colonialism is it's a dark patch in Indian history.
absolutely.
There are
And
like no dogs and Indians allowed in the club.
right, right. And so, for black people, you had to eat outside or you only could come in the back door. There were lots for a long time they couldn't go into hotels. I was listening to something, I don't know if you've read this or studied this, but there are pig laws, right? So as a black person, you couldn't raise your voice, you could not, if you were not spoken to, you could not speak to someone. If you stole something, you could, lose your limb, you could lose your life, you could be put in jail for life. I mean,
Hmm.
all of these things correlate across the globe. I mean,
Yep.
they're not just
Yes.
India. China has these issues. Japan has all of these things there. What's really interesting about Japan is there is gender, right? So the woman is less than the man, and I think that's true in India, but to a large
Yep.
degree that not only are we talking about skin color, but we're talking about gender. And there's all of these pieces that we have set ourselves up for that separates us more than it brings us together. And I don't know what you're going to do when you finish school, but just imagine if the only people in the room look just like you, and I don't necessarily mean physically look like you, but have the same education you have the same experiences, and you are working on a project. Guess what that project is going to look like? It's going to look like you. But if you have the person you describe who cooks and cleans, and if you have the person who is a warrior, if you have all, you are likely to have a product that is more successful for the global world as opposed to those that are in power and those with wealth, right? So diversity of people and ideas and thoughts are necessary for us to bring this globe that we are on forward in a way that we all can participate in it. Because I will tell you, so I'm a technologist. I'm working in technology for 40 plus years. And back in the day when I first started in the late 70s, early 80s, we used to have this thing called groupthink, right? So everybody sits around in a room, we come up with a project, right? So we're getting ready to update this mainframe. We all have the exact experience and the exact same idea. So guess what? The mainframe is full of flaws. It's just flawed as possible, right? Because we all just think alike. So, you know, what we began to recognize, we haven't figured out how to fully exploit it in the entire population, is that you need people who are not like you. You need people who don't agree with your views, that don't share your morals, that don't go to your church, do not practice your way of living. That's how you have success. That's how you have success, you know. So
Yes, and like going deeper into what you said, like the kind of problems that we want to solve and the kind of problems that are identified, they're not identified, they're not meant to be serve everyone. They are targeted. They're targeted towards the privileged or the upper class. And so that's why probably that is why they don't need everyone to like have a different perspective. It's your level of problem, people like you will able to solve it. So identifying those problems in the first like is a bigger issue in the first place. They're not identifying more important problems, more basic and fundamental problems, so they don't need people to different people to ideate on them. But that's a different kind. But like you said, like I mean a technical problem is different. Obviously you need different kinds of thing in technology. But again, the kinds of like again capitalism is it's like capitalism, colonialism, they are like they have caused a lot of uh, evils to be penetrated into many other things into the society.
absolutely.
And yeah.
So are you once you finish school, are you going to stay in America or are you going home?
That's a good question. I honestly don't know. And this answer has evolved over the last 1 year, especially more in the last few months. Uh, the kind of place I want to work, the kind of country I want to work in, the kind of people I want to serve, the kind of uh, problems that I want to tackle is an ever evolving question. But as a part of my education, I definitely want to work here for a few years to understand. So I work in I'm having an education in energy, and I wish to work in electricity markets, understand the economics and efficiencies, and the financing and the market structures, the policy and the legal side. So that's an initial goal in the short term goal to learn about better practices and maybe eventually implement them for developing countries. I love taking classes at the policy school and learning about solutions for
Yeah.
emerging markets and developing countries.
Yeah. Well, I will tell you something.
That's to be determined.
Yes, you're an impressive young man. I am very honored to have this chat with you. I cannot tell you how wonderful it is to hear your experiences. And I really do believe you will make a change in the world. And I look forward to seeing what you do. Stay in touch with me. You know, let me know if I can help you, if there's something I can do for you. But I do believe that you are one of those people here on earth that are destined to change what's around you, not just in the United States, but in India and in other places. And you have to stay focused. And I will tell you, you are going to meet adversaries. You are going to have challenges that are going to sometimes make you question why you're doing what you're doing. But you have to have the fortitude within yourself to push through that. I mean, that's just the way it is. But I am just so impressed with you and your thoughts and your ideas and what you shared with me today that I am grateful, so grateful for this time. So
Oh,
thank you very
oh,
much for that.
I appreciate your words. I really appreciate them. And may I share? And it's my pleasure and my honor to share these stories. And thanks for finding me. May I share one more thought? So again, for me, as a person of color and immigration go hand in hand,
Right.
and the reason, it does cause so much anxiety and stress, and I need to make sure that I'm putting in every breath of effort that I can to survive because of the regulations, the immigration laws and whatnot. And it's not easy. It's a challenge. Like, it's a challenge at every step. It's at the whim of certain decision makers, who may or may not identify what value I bring to anyone at the table. So it's I agree with, it's definitely not easy. It's a ever evolving battle which I fight every day.
Well,
And
let
yeah,
me add, if you have immigration issues, please let me know. I know a few people in that space that can help. I know a lot of students that come to the United States come with student visas, and they have a specific set of time that they can stay. But if you decide, that you want that, while you're still in school, you should be identifying places you like to work and things you like to do. You should also think about creating your own business. So what can you do? Can you be
yeah,
a consultant for companies who are struggling with these issues that you're talking about, energy and environmental and
mhm,
environmental justices and things of that nature?
yes,
So you should be thinking about that. But I mean, when you're done and if you have decided that you want to stay in America, please let me know, and I will. I having worked in the law school and have a lot of association with judges
yes,
and police people like that, I have been, people have been in, I had one of my LLM students deported about 2 months ago, but by the time she told me it was too late to do anything about it, ICE had already done what they were going to do, and so they deported her because that visa has very specific guidelines that it must adhere to. So by the time I was in the loop with,
yes.
it was already too late. So but
I really appreciate that. I really appreciate that. And I'm so sorry to hear about that.
yeah, but stay in touch with me.
Yes.
Let me know.
Definitely, Rochelle. Thank you so much. It was really great talking with you.
Absolutely. So now I have a favor to ask of you. So
Yes, please.
I am a money collector. So I
Okay.
will pay you in American dollars if you will send me some Indian money. And I mean, I don't care what it is, whether it's coins or bills or whatever it is. I collect money from all over the world. And so whenever I
Okay.
come from somewhere, so you tell me how much it is in American dollars, and I will happily send
Okay.
it to you. But please, because I there's something about money from across the world that is different from just plain old American currency. Just
Oh, definitely, I'll do that. I used to collect coins from different countries. My uncle and or like some people in the family would go for work to different countries, and they would bring back these coins. And I still have that. It was a small stash, but I still have it back in India in a drawer, which I've locked and kept in a prized possession collection. But I'll definitely do that. I'll reach out to you after this. And
yes, and
uh,
you should continue to collect because I don't know how familiar you are with the term financial technology. It's called fintech,
mhm.
abbreviated. In the next 10 years, there will be no currency, no paper or coin
Right,
because of the issues with robbery and fraud and all that stuff right
for
there.
sure.
So collect while you still can,
Yes.
because it will become very valuable. When it doesn't exist, it will become very, very valuable.
Definitely.
So continue to collect, and lock it away or whatever. But it's a really good thing
Yes,
to do, because it has historical context, right? Money
for sure.
all different
Yes.
types of money we've had, but absolutely. So thank you very much again. I'm very grateful. Um,
Thank you.
I'm going to send you my address, and you can tell me
Yes, please do.
we can do Cash App or Venmo or whatever the thing is. But
Yes.
yeah,
All right.
and I
Great.
appreciate this very much. And please stay in touch. You know, if I can help, please help reach out. I'm happy to do all I can.
Likewise, I don't know what capacity, but I offer full help.
All
I
right,
believe in service and service to people and as a job. So thanks
ab-
so much.
absolutely. Thank you so much. Stay safe and have a great weekend.
Definitely, you too. Thanks so much. See ya. Bye bye. Namaste.
Absolutely.